Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. This week we break down UFC Vegas 65, headed back to the Apex for some big boys here. Heavyweight showdown between Knockout King Derrick Lewis taking on Sergey Spivak. Derrick Lewis, absolutely live to knock out anybody on the roster, and dude's not unfamiliar with people trying to take him down in the past. And we're searching for a co-main event for a little bit. Looks like they moved up Cutelaba, Kennedy Nzechukwu in this spot. Should be another great fight. Makes a total of 12 for us on Saturday. Some early fights as well, which you and I both enjoyed there. Prelims starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, main card at 4. Before we get started, do us a quick favor. Like the video, sub to the channel if you guys haven't already. We're treated last week with UFC 281, man. Saw both titles change hands as well. Zhang Weili, round 2 submission, and then, bit of a debatable stoppage, but Israel up 3 rounds to 1, gets finished with 3 minutes left in the final round by the guy who's now beat him 3 times, and Alex Pereira. Should be a really good rematch as well for them. But 11 of our 13 fights finished inside the distance. Crowd was absolutely treated. For you and I, it was a mixed bag of results. I'll admit a whole lot of variance on your behalf, man, but altogether, it was one of the best pay-per-views we've had in a minute.
Yeah, entertainment value was off the charts. We'll take a look at your card first. Your best bet of the night was Dan Hooker against Claudio Puelles. That was an easy cash, man. Claudio Puelles, I guess he had him close there in that knee bar, but outside of that, he looked awful. It was
Movement looked too big for him.
Way too big for him. Sungwoo Choi against Mike Trizano. The left hooks were catching both guys early. I don't know. Sungwoo Choi just kept on kind of telegraphing when he was coming in for the shots, and Mike Trizano was able to land that. I think your other best bet of the night had to have been the Matt Frevola-Ottman Azatar under 2.5 rounds. There was no way that was seeing the judges, and you cashed good on that one as well. You ended up the night positive 3.16 units with a 29% ROI. And moving on to my card. Dang, man, you talked a little bit about variance. I got to mention the Adesanya. Had he got the KO in that round 1, got the stoppage, it would have been a plus 10.5 unit night for me. If he had just gotten the win, it would have been a positive 5 unit night for me. Thus, I am in the negative this night. Israel couldn't hang on. I ended up hedging out of my Ottman Azatar fight, which was kind of the only. It was a nice play to hedge out with the odds changing as much as they did, and then. I think my other best play was probably Blanchfield by submission at plus 420. She got in there, made it look easy. I ended up the night minus 1.62 units. Hopefully I can get some swings the other direction this fight card. In our main event, we have 2 heavyweights where we see the Black Beast Derrick Lewis taking on the Polar Bear Sergey Spivak. Derrick Lewis, he's my favorite fade in the UFC, man, and he's back again against another seemingly bad stylistic matchup in Sergey Spivak. I think I'm ready to go back to the well, man. If you've listened to any of our podcasts in the past, when Derrick Lewis is fighting, I don't have too much faith in him as a fighter. At the ripe age of 37 years old and on this L2, I think I'm finally at a point where I'm comfortable saying I doubt he'll ever have another title run in the tank. A lot of my confidence in saying that comes from his last 2 losses against Pavlovich and Tuivasa. I feel like he's showing that he can't take a shot anymore, and that's not what you want to hear coming from the KO King, right? I know that there were a lot of conspiracies in the Tuivasa fight where he might be taking a dive, and I don't believe in any of that, but I do think it's an example of him not reacting well to power shots. And, as we know, Lewis, he has limited offensive techniques he can use. Sure, he throws some of those, flashy kicks, but, it looks cool coming from such a big guy, but it doesn't seem like too much of a threat. And now with him not handling the power shots as well, it really exposes his inability to mix in the wrestling when he needs to. So with Sergey, we're getting a younger, more well-rounded fighter who's coming into his own at 27 years old and actually becoming the polar bear. And I say that with the weight that he's been putting on fight to fight. He's now, trimmed down from his initial UFC debut where he came in with a little bit of flab and slowly put on about 5 pounds of muscle every single fight. And now he's sitting at 250 or more coming into this bout. He's averaging over 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. And watching his last fight with Sakai, it looks like his striking game is also improving. And it's combining great with setting up those wrestling entries of him. Ultimately, I've never thought of Derrick Lewis as someone with a ton of heart when he fights. And with his current age and the talent that he's being matched up against, I think that he's looking for a way out quicker than he usually would. He's proven all that he needs to in the UFC, having the most KOs in history. But if he doesn't find this early, I do think that he's willing to take the easy way out. I'll be the first to admit Lewis has cost me more money than I'd like to say, but I'm a glutton for punishment, and I am going back for more. I've got 3.5 units on Sergey at minus 175. If I lose to a big KO punch 2 weeks in a row when I'm betting on the younger, more well-rounded fighter, so be it. But I do think that Sergey has all the advantages that I need to place a bet on him.
I think you 100% got the right side, but for me, Lewis has been one of my least profitable guys on the roster, or at least burnt me more than a lot of guys on the roster, and you talked about it, extremely one-dimensional, one of the most one-dimensional guys on the roster, and the fact that he holds all these knockout records, his fought for the belt twice, is honestly mind-blowing. He just pretty much makes a living off of his raw power, and in his absolute fight-ending power. If this guy lands once on your chin, it can put you out, but as of late, he's on the decline in my opinion. A few months shy of 38 years old, got the bad back and everything going on, and his work ethic in the gym and training is just it's been in question for years. He's like you talked about, he's obviously there for the money. The guy's got a horrendous gas tank, and where Sergey's style used to be really the only style to go out there and beat Derrick Lewis. Look at him now. He's getting knocked out in his last 3 of his 4 losses. He's lost last 4, and 3 of them are by TKO. So it's like there's plenty of other ways to beat Derrick Lewis. He doesn't seem to be able to take a shot now. And granted, he's always live for the knockout, but stylistically, you got to think this fight is not generous for him whatsoever. And Sergey landing the takedowns is probably what's the most likely thing to happen here as well. Decade younger at 27 years old and at Extreme Couture, man, I really just think this guy, like you said, starting to come into his own, putting on that weight. And in his last 2 fights, he's fought exactly how you want him to in this fight with Derrick Lewis. In the fight with Greg Hardy, goes out there and shoots 3 takedowns, gets him out of there early. Fight with Sakai, he's straight ragdolling this guy every time he gets back to his feet. 6 takedowns, finishes him in the 2nd or 3rd round. So I'm with you. The pick is going to be Spivak. I think he just gets Derrick Lewis in a bad spot on the mat, probably TKOs him out of there, but my record betting against Derrick Lewis is not good. It may be enough for me to just pass, sit back and enjoy some violence. I think it hits under 3.5. I think it maybe doesn't start round 4 if you're looking for a parlay piece, but I 100% think you got the right side here. For our co-main event, go to light heavyweight division where we see Ion Cutelaba taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu here. Man, it's honestly a fight that I've struggled to get an extremely good read on. Cutelaba, he's always known for his antics at weigh-ins, introduction. The guy just comes out in round 1 like a wild man. I think I'd probably say 95% of his finishes come in round 1, and Kennedy as well, man. It's a very notorious slow starter, in my opinion, early. But it's after round 1 where you see a lot of things start to go out the window for Cutelaba. His fight IQ is already not there, mismanages the gas tank completely. And when you put this guy on his back, his defensive wrestling is not very good. But early on, very explosive, good offensive wrestling. And I can damn near guarantee you he's going to land a takedown here in round 1 and potentially can land, a big shot on the feet. He's a whole lot for people to deal with early. And for an underdog to have that much finishing upside early, I think is intriguing of itself. But his current form is kind of hard to bet on. He's 1-5 in his last 6, but you really could argue, or what is it? I think he's 1-4 in his last, or something like that. But the Dustin Jacoby, it was not a 10-8 in the round 1. He did nothing with any of the takedowns to me, and so I think this guy very much could be 1-5 in his last 6 fights. The fight IQ, swinging overhands at air against Ryan Spann was not a good showing watching that back. And for Kennedy, he does train at the same gym as Ryan Spann, so Saif Saud and these guys have trained. They have game plan for this guy before. Kennedy's entering his prime at 30 years old. He's got some of the best, what you call, frame stature for the weight class. And I think he's made improvements his last 2. I guess he's looked a little bit better than he has before. And he has the foundations there with that length and reach and probably superior gas tank. But I think he kind of fails to almost flip the switch come fight night. Maybe he puts it all in stuff in the gym, but come fight night, it just doesn't have that sense of urgency to him. He oftentimes gets behind. You talk about the Olberg and the Danilo Marquez, their come from behind wins. The showing against Da Jung was as poor as it comes. And let's go 3 years back where he's given up a bunch of takedowns to Darko Stosic, So to me, it seems like pre-flop, it's an easy fight to pass on. I think if you survives that early storm, maybe you could get a decent line on Kennedy live after round 1, but finishing upside on the dog and Cutelaba. It's probably the most intriguing thing here. What do you think?
I feel like this is going to be one of the more polarizing fights on the card for the MMA capper space. I think that we're going to have some pretty strong opinions on it. I'm kind of leaning towards the Cutelaba side here. I know suffering those 2 back-to-back losses, being only 28 years old, I still think that he has quite a bit of upside. Kennedy coming off that win over Carl Robertson, I do think that people are seeing that he's starting to put it together at 30 years old. And that's kind of always been the talking point of Kennedy, is that he's so big, long, and athletic. And he's already showed us in the Carlos Ulberg fight that he has the heart, that once he rounds out his game and trains at a good gym for a while, he'll be a real problem for the division. I'm just not buying that yet, man. Even, you talked about his UFC wins already a little bit, but, just going through them, Stosic, he was 1-3 in the UFC and cut. He squeezed by Ulberg at a sheer heart, but that was Ulberg's debut and only his 4th professional fight. Like you said, it took him 3 rounds to finish Danilo Marquez, who is also no longer in the organization and fighting debuting fighters right now on Gladiator Challenge. Carl Robertson, he's a middleweight on an L4. None of them writing home about. This fight, I feel like skill-wise, is definitely a lot closer to the Daun Jung fight. Which, we saw him show 0 IQ. From the jump, it felt like they were fighting in a phone booth, and practically it was a tough man competition. If Kennedy gets it or makes the mistake of getting into a slugfest with Ion, I do think he gets absolutely obliterated here, man. I like to look at the Dustin Jacoby fight for comparison. Ion addresses the size advantage of Dustin Jacoby by initiating that takedown early and getting it to the mat. I thought he did an excellent job of punishing Jacoby. I scored that a 10-8 round 1. It was 4 minutes of Jacoby on his hands and knees and Ion getting clean elbows and punches to his head without any offense coming from Jacoby. If, like you said, this is a dog with huge finishing upside, I think I'm going to find a way to play it. I think it'll be a very good fight for as long as it lasts. And Ion being 2 years younger than Kennedy here, I don't know, man. I know that he's had a tough road, but I do think that there's still a lot of potential for Ion Cutelaba, and I think he's going to make it a really interesting fight right off the jump.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to mention here as well, Kennedy, there's just a prop that stood out to me. His submission prop is plus 1,100. And, to have someone that size, we saw Johnny Walker at 6'6", just get the back and submit him, and if Cutelaba's cardio does go out the window, I thought plus 1,100 was a bit interesting, but minus 360 that this fight doesn't see the distance, and the fact that you're able to even get Cutelaba by TKO at plus 240s and stuff. Round 1s, I'm sure.
Round 1's at plus 800, and that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, you got minus 360 inside the, minus 360 a fight doesn't go the distance, but all these finishing props on both sides at drastic plus numbers, props are probably the way to play this fight.
So for my fight of the night to watch, it's Jack Della Maddalena versus Danny Roberts. First off, the fact that Jack Della is younger than both of us is absolutely insane to me. He's shown a ton of promise since coming into the UFC off his Contender Series win over Angelusa. And then getting the back-to-back finishes in the first round. They put him in a position where he's a minus 500 favorite over a veteran with a positive UFC record, over 12 fights in the organization, in Danny Roberts. Danny Roberts, he's a long-rangey guy in the division that admittingly has run into a few hiccups in his career, but is always dangerous, and spoiling parlays are nothing new for him, as his last 2 wins were coming as an underdog, 2-1 underdog at that. It just seems like a classic overcorrection coming from the public and from the bookies. Yes, I agree Della has looked phenomenal in his recent wins, but the dude's only 26, and I think we could all agree that this is his hardest test to date. How can we be that confident to give him a 5-1 price tag? I do think that this fight will take place primarily on the feet, and as much shit as I have given Della on this breakdown, I do expect him to get the win. I just don't think it'll come as easily as the price tag is suggesting, which is why it's my fight to watch. And yeah, I think Danny Roberts gives him a little something.
I don't necessarily think so. I got Jack Della Maddalena in a parlay with somebody in my fight we'll talk about here. I really don't know what Danny Roberts has for him on the feet, which is primarily where this is going to take place. Jack's almost a decade younger. The guy's in the best form of his career, 12-fight win streak. He's finished 11 of those inside the distance. And to me, it was Ameev that was the hardest fight for his career. Not only has Ameev only been finished one other time throughout his entire career, but it brought the grappling, edge to him that I really wanted to see how Jack dealt with. I don't really see that grappling threat here. And without that grappling threat, JDM has pretty much the size. He's not as big, but he's got similar size to Danny and can match that height and reach. He does a really good job of staying behind the jab. A whole lot more volume. You see him with the Pete Rodriguez. He'll stick the jab out a couple times, just kind of bait you into that dead space before he lets his right hand go. And he works the body, finishing a Meave with body shots. You just combine all that with historically the durability of Danny Roberts, who's been knocked out 4 times in the UFC. And just go watch the video of the media this week asking him about how he took that punch against Francisco Trinaldo, where he took the right jab and was literally stumbling all over the cage. It's just not a good look for you, man. I think Maddalena finished this guy inside the distance by TKO relatively quickly. And all those lines are actually worse than the under 1.5, which is, if you want the best line on a quick finish, that's probably how you should go.
I got to point out that JDM has made it look very easy over guys that he's taller than. He's got 2 inches on Pete Rodriguez, an inch on Amiv and on Jalusa. Danny Roberts, 2-inch height advantage, much longer in reach, and his toughest opponent to date. Like I said, I do think that this will be a whole lot closer than the lines suggest.
For my fight of the night, I took Zhalgas Zhumagulov taking on Charles Johnson for a couple reasons here. Zhalgas is always notorious for making these fights close no matter what his money line is sitting at, oftentimes as the underdog. But also I think this is really the first true look we're getting at Charles Johnson and what kind of prospect he's going to be. For Zhalgas, the guy's 34 years old. He has lost 4 of his last 5 fights, and some being controversial. I just reiterate the fact that this guy knows how to make fights close, whether it's on the regional scene with Ulanbekov and Tyson Nam and winning those fights, to even over here in the UFC, man. He holds the experience, the competition edge here, and he's well rounded. He just doesn't necessarily wow me in any area, I just think here, I think he's going to really struggle to manage and close that range on the feet, and I feel like the career is kind of on the decline at 34. I feel like I've seen everything I'm going to see from Zhalgas Zhumagulov. But, man, I will tell you straight up, you were robbed last time, against Jeff Molina. That was one of the straight-up best underdog picks you have ever made. Hit him money line, hit him by decision, and, man, you got robbed. But it told me 2 things. The judges do not favor that style one bit because, it's basically – I think 13% is what I have written down of his control time once he gets these guys down. It's little to no ground and pound on the mat when he gets you there. And the judges don't favor it because when the fight gets back to the feet, he's losing every minute on the feet a lot of times. And also it seems to me that maybe when this fight is close, they're just going to seem like they're going to give it to their UFC prospect that they like a little bit more if that seems close. And this kind of seems like that situation because it seems to me like it's a little bit of a thank you fight for going over to London, fighting Mokaev in his home crowd in your debut because you're the LFA champion. You're coming off of a round 5 finish over a guy who's also now in the UFC, and they make you go over there to London to fight Mokaev. I think a lot of guys in that situation get a much easier fight for their debut. Measurables for a flyweight, you love to see him. 5 inches taller, 4 inches longer in reach. I think he was like a track athlete. This dude's cardio and pace is on another level. And you just didn't really get to see it because of Mokaev putting him against the cage and backpacking him the whole time. And while Zhalgas may find moments of success doing that, I don't think it's going to be near the length of the amount of time. And I think, honestly, we might see minus 250 if that Mokaev fight just didn't happen. I like Charles Johnson to win this fight here, but Zhalgas has always kind of came through for you in the past, man.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely tempted to go back to the well on Zhalgas. I do think that he got robbed in that last one. I agree.
100%.
And just I have issues with Charles Johnson sitting at the minus 175 price tag that he has. Yes, it's tough to look good against Muhammad Mokaev, but there's nothing showing me that he should be that high of a favorite over UFC competition. And like you said, Carlos Mota has entered the UFC now, but he was soundly beaten by Cody Durden in their fight. I'm not sure that you can make him a favorite over somebody who's shown that they also can go 5 rounds. They can beat guys like Tagir Ulanbekov that, like you said, it might be controversial, but you're making it close against somebody who I think would whoop both these guys, and Tagir Ulanbekov if they refought. I don't know. Like you said, this is a great fight to touch on. And at 135, at flyweight, there's always going to be good fights. There's always going to be good scrambles, and this is a great one to keep an eye on. For my fighter to watch, I went with Ricky Tercios. I had to pick Ricky as my fighter to watch, man. He's the winner of the Ultimate Fighter Season 29 and showed a ton of promise coming into the UFC, winning his bout against Brady Heidstead to become the Ultimate Fighter. He's exciting. He's weird. He displays a ton of unique methods, both inside and outside the octagon. Then he got what I consider to be a favorable matchup in Amin Zahabi in his true UFC debut, in my opinion. And he didn't even look like he wanted to be in there, man. Even in his post-fight comments, it just made it even more disappointing. He more or less said he didn't want to be in there. He couldn't get it going. He wasn't there mentally. That's not something that you want to hear. As much as I do like that go with the flow attitude and everything, it's frustrating to see a fighter when you feel like he's not giving 100% in the cage. And I can't help but shake that feeling from the Zahabi fight. Now he's got another seemingly easy UFC opponent in Kevin Natividad, and there's not very many easy opponents in the 135 division, but Natividad is 0-2 since entering the organization, and I do think that this is the opportunity for Ricky to kind of right his wrongs here. I gotta imagine after a few Ultimate Fighter winner disappointments and Nico Montana and now Ricky Tercios, it would just be a bad look for the UFC to have these Ultimate Fighter winners not pan out at least a little bit in the UFC. So I do think that this is another layup fight, and the reason why I think that Ricky Tercios should be my fighter to watch.
Been staring at his money line all week to see if I just want to bet him, but hard, man. It's so hard. Fighter for me, pulling out my simp card, Marina Moroz, first UFC girl to grace Playboy, $12.99 monthly OnlyFans. Ukrainian national boxing champion, man. This girl, she trains out of American Top Team. She works with good coaches. She trains with good girls. And I think you're really seeing a developed overall really good game from her. She has great volume. She stays behind a good jab. And you saw in the Agapova fight, she will mix in the grappling now. And when she knows she has an advantage there, she'll go to it early and often. Much younger here, and to me, she seems like the one that I'm constantly seeing improvements from. She's faster on the feet. Again, she throws more volume. Defensively, statistically, she is better. And she's the one that I think can win the minutes on the feet. And I think she's more likely to be the one who's initiating the wrestling in this matchup as well. Maya, the one good thing she does have going for her, the elite level competition. She's fought the best of the best recently. Everybody talks about her one round. She took off Valentina in the past, But outside of that, it's like she really hasn't had moments that she's even looked decent against any of those girls. She's just getting older. You rewatch the fight with Jessica Ai, and man, she does not look good. If that Jennifer Maia shows up in this fight, Marina Moroz is going to take this one, in my opinion. When you look down, she's actually been in the UFC since 2015, fought some sneaky good competition down at strawweight, but was set back with the injuries and things, and now up at flyweight really just kind of seemed to be putting the things together. So I think she's in a decently good spot, got a good name inside the top 10, so she's my fighter to watch, man. Ready to see if she can make that leap into the top 10.
For my underdog of the night, I'll be talking about this fight quite a bit, actually. It's Ion Cutelaba, man. There was a lot of fighters that I think are going to make it close. Zhalgas Zhumagulov, but Ion Cutelaba is the guy who I actually think has winning upside.
Yeah.
He's not just going to make it close. He's either going to get it the fuck done or he's not. And I do think that he has the potential to get it done here. I think that, one, he's got the experience edge over Kennedy Nzechukwu. But on top of that, this would definitely be Kennedy's biggest step up to date. I like what I saw as far as Cutelaba closing the distance against Dustin Jacoby, who is also a long, rangy fighter. And if he can do that in round one, maybe Kennedy can show me heart and really ride it out in that round one. But I do love that there's a ton of finishing upside for Ion Cutelaba, so that's why he's my underdog of the night.
Not only would it be Kenny's best win, it'd be the worst person Eon's ever lost to as well, man. I think he has very much potential to come through as an underdog. For me, I'm going to go with Andre Fialho. I do got minus 105 here, but he did open plus 155, and at the time of writing it, there was some plus 105 still hanging out there. As it's closing closer to a pick'em here, I think I got another underdog here who has finishing potential and could look like the bigger favorite come Saturday. He's got the youth on Muslim, which was kind of shocking to me. He's 10 years younger. He's only 28 years old. The guy's fought in Bellator, PFL, now doing the damn thing at the UFC. He's fought at a very high level throughout his whole career, and he trains at a high level with Henry Hooft and the guys down at Sanford MMA. He's a little bit bigger, 4-inch reach advantage. And like I said, I think he's the more likely the one that has the finishing upside. They are both coming off of TKO losses, but I see a lot of the Leach and Andre style a little bit being similar here. Andre likes to come forward, put that pressure, and make you fight. And we saw that really wear on Muslim last time. Muslim likes that much slower pace fight where he can kind of dance around, land his spinning kicks, land his counters at range. And when you can make him move laterally and put him on that back foot, you take away a lot of his weapons, and it looked like the 38-year-old, really didn't have the gas tank to be able to do that anymore. I see a round 2 or 3 finish coming from Fialho. I think he does have some pretty lackluster striking defense himself. His hands are kept kind of down. But, man, if he comes out like he did in his debut against Michel Pereira, able to eat some of those shots and walk forward like that, dude, he's putting Muslim Salikov away. I think we both got 2 dogs here on Saturday.
For my prop of the night, I thought about getting greedy, but I've kind of tailed it back a little bit. We're going Ion Cutelaba round 1 instead of just the TKO round 1. You can get the round 1 finish at plus 450. I think that's a great way to play him, man. We've talked about it over and over again tonight. He's got a round 1 win over Khalil Roundtree, over Gadson Murad and Tigulov, against Luis Henrique da Silva. All of those wins by TKO, but he does have multiple omoplata wins on his record. The dude knows what he's doing on the ground, and I think that it's a good enough price tag for me. That round 1, he's going to come out with pressure, and just getting a plus 450 price tag on this guy's 90% path to victory, I think that it's a solid prop bet.
I think that's a must hit. If Kennedy comes out here and stands in front of him like he did Olberg and Jung, night, plus 450 cashing. Prop for me, Ricky Tercios by decision. I'm going to go plus 125. I don't think this prop would ever be plus money had Kevin not been, stiffened in his last 2 fights. I don't see that finishing upside, especially maybe a submission, but not on the TKO side coming from Ricky Tercios. 7 of this guy's 11 professional wins are by decision already. So I feel like as you increase the competition level on him, it's just going to even be more decisions, And again, probably should be like a minus 110 if it was not for Kevin Natividad being knocked out in his last 2. Ricky, though, I think he has a lot of the tools to win this fight. The better gas tank, the dude can go for days, and he showed me in that Amin Zahabi fight can take a really, really great shot. He's got a good chin, and I feel like that's Natividad's only real way of winning is landing a big shot. And you take away the one fight against Amin Zahabi, and Ricky looks like he should just double this guy up on volume all day. Real kick-heavy attack, switching levels with everything, and again, the ability to mix in a takedown or 2. And I like the prop at plus money. I have been staring at the money line all week, but it's just you don't want to lay juice on a guy who goes out there and has a performance like we talked about and looking like he not even wants to be there in the cage.
Taking a flyer on Khalil Roundtree. Is the same thing,
Exactly. I just think, for a guy who's 7 of his 11 wins are by decision, you're getting plus money again on his most likely path to victory. Tercios decision plus 25 for my prop.
For my best bet, I will be taking my 3.5 unit bet on Sergey Spivak, man. I do think that he's all around the much more well-rounded fighter. He does have the grappling upside. He has the youth advantage, probably the speed advantage. And it's every Derrick Lewis fight ever. He has a puncher's chance here, Sergey Spivak, 27 years old, putting on the muscle that he is. I do think that he'll be able to come out here, get those takedowns early, and punish Derrick Lewis when he is on the ground. Of course, Lewis has that FU strength. He can stand up. He can make it interesting. But ultimately, I do think that Spivak has shown that he has the cardio and just the tenacity at 27 years old, that he is going to get the fight to where he wants it, and he's hopefully going to be covering that price tag.
Dude, there's not oftentimes a whole lot of these fights where stylistically it just lines up to hammer it. And I mean, from what I've seen lately, I think Spivak should go out there and ragdoll Derrick Lewis. Best bet for me, I'm going to go with Brady Heisted, runner-up from Tough last year. Actually did lose to Ricky Tercios, but I thought gave a real good account of himself. Arguably almost could have won that fight. And at 23 years old, training at Jiu-Jitsu, Michael Chiesa kind of taking the kid underneath his wing a little bit. He fights just like Michael Chiesa as well. I just think that he's at the point where there is drastic improvements in every facet of this guy's game that is going to be on display. And he's always sticking to the game plan. Landed 6 takedowns out in his last fight against Ricky Tercios. Hunts for submissions, and you couldn't ask for a more perfect style, taking on Fernie Garcia here, who's a primary boxer, a guy who's real heavy in his stance, who's bad at defending leg kicks, bad at defending takedowns. You look back to some of his fights on the regional scene, he's going with split decisions with very low-level competition due to the fact that he really can't stay upright on his feet sometimes late in the fight. And I think Brady could just really have his way with this guy on the mat. Fernie, primary boxer, might hold a bit of an advantage on the feet, but he's only got one TKO in all of his 10 wins as well, so the power doesn't really worry me too much. I just watched him fight a Journey Newsom, who was on a 2-year layoff after taking the head kick from Randy Costa, and Newsom 30-27's this guy on the feet, lands a couple takedowns. I think there's a ton of improvement coming here from Brady Highstead, 2.25 units at minus 150. I think he wins a very, very dominant decision. And I think that sub prop's very live to hit as well.
All right, we kick off our quick pick section of the podcast in the women's flyweight division, where we see Natalia Silva taking on Teresa Bleda. I think I'm going to go with Teresa here. Bigger girl, low level. She's got all the physical advantages, so I'll go with her.
Not only that, but I bet Natalia Silva at plus 200 last time, and now she's minus 200. Yeah, potential overcorrection, all the size advantages, which we will tell you time and time again is everything in women's MMA. Teresa Bleda as well, man. She's a popular dog this week too. Moving up, Fernie Garcia taking on Brady Highstead. Best bet of the week. Looking to make that 3 best bets in a row. Hoping Brady comes make this easy.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Brady Highstead here. Moving on, we go to the women's strawweight, where we see Maria Oliveira taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. For what it's worth, this is probably the best chance that Vanessa Demopoulos is going to get on a W3 in the UFC, man. These odds are really close. Yeah. I'm going to go with Lil Monster. I don't know, her jumping up in Joe Rogan's hands and everything. Maybe she won her some fans, and maybe she's getting a favorable matchup here in the UFC.
It's a close one, man. I definitely have zero interest in betting it. My only concern, Maria Oliveira, she just fought 2 girls who really wanted to take her down in Tabitha Ricci and De Paula, and I thought she gave a good account of herself in Ricci and then won the split decision against De Paula. Both of those girls might be better than Vanessa Demopoulos, so I'm going to take Maria Oliveira, but with no conviction. Ricky Tercios, Kevin the TV Dad. I might end up betting Ricky before the week's over. He's going to beat the pick.
I don't know. I don't know if I can get to betting Tercios after all those excuses after the fight.
1 unit.
Yeah, I know. It's tempting for sure. I'm going to pick Tercios with you, but, I hope he gets back on track. Moving on, we go to the bantamweight division, where we see Miles Johns taking on Vince Morales. Never been a huge fan of Vince Morales. I'm going to take Miles Johns here. Not with a ton of conviction. I think it might be a little bit different for you.
Yeah, I really like Miles Johns here. I got 3 bets on the card. He's one of them. I got 1.45 units to win 1 unit on Miles Johns. He is taking it on a little bit of a short notice, but I think he's taking it on short notice for a reason. This is a fight he can absolutely win. Jennifer Maia taking on my girl Marina Moroz. Not only do I just like her Instagram and things, I think she's potentially actually a very skilled girl and trains at a good camp with some good girls. I think Marina Moroz is actually going to take this step into the top 10 on Saturday.
I think that it's a little bit of an overcorrection on the line. She beat Agapova, and that's good, but like you said, the experience gap between Jennifer Maia and Maria Agapova is pretty good. I'm going to lean with you, go with Moroz here. Maia does seem to be kind of a mushy underdog bet this week, and I don't really want any part of it, so I'm with you on Moroz. Moving forward, we go to the flyweight division. We stay in the flyweight division, but still the males. Zhalgas Zhumagulov taking on Charles Johnson. I'm going with Zhalgas Zhumagulov here. I think he's going to make it real close, and although the judges hate him, I think that he's better.
I am with Charles Johnson. I got a unit on a parlay with him in the next fight, Jack Della Maddalena. I think that this is a thank you fight for Charles Johnson. And let me tell you, if he drops this one, UFC has no hopes for him anymore. Moving up, main card, Jack Della Maddalena taking on Danny Roberts. That's a mouthful. Man, I really think he goes out here and boxes Danny Roberts up, and I think he puts him away on the feet within rounds 1 or 2.
I really want to say hot sauce here. I can't. No, I'm with you. I think Jack should win. No way he covers minus 500. If he does, I'll eat my words, but I don't think he will. Moving up, we stay in the welterweight division with Muslim Salikov taking Andre Fialho. I like Fialho a lot, just as a fan, but I don't think he has a well-rounded game. I do think that Salikov probably has more paths to victory if he does choose to mix in some wrestling here and there. So I'm going to go with Salikov, but don't feel great about it, and I hope that Fialho wins.
I'm picking Fialho, but there's so many things that he has that make him a liability backing him, you know. So although he's the pick, no money on him there. Another heavyweight fight here. Chase Sherman taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta. One we didn't touch on, but one there could be potentially another live underdog, man. Waldo just fought a hard 3 rounds, man. Do I think he fully recovered from that? I don't know, man. Chase Sherman is a better Jared Vanderaa. Chase Sherman, dude.
Yeah, I think I'm sticking with you. I'm going Chase Sherman as well. I think the leg kick specifically are what's going to give Waldo a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think that Chase could probably draw this out and kind of capitalize on the cardio disadvantage that Waldo Acosta has. So I'm with you. I'm going underdog Chase Sherman. Moving on to the co-main event, light heavyweight Ion Cutelaba versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. We've talked about it all night. I'm on Ion Cutelaba here.
You know, it's like, who do I think's going to win the first half of the fight? Cutelaba, but who do I think has good upside to win the last half if it goes that far? It's the other side in Kennedy, but I think there's value on Cutelaba as well, so I'll pick him with you, man. Cutelaba, let's make it $2 in a row. And then in the main event, Derrick Lewis taking on Sergey Spivak. Stylistically, this is a very generous fight for Sergey Spivak to jump into the top 10 of the division, you know, taking on a former title challenger, a big name in Derrick Lewis. I hope he gets it done. Sergey Spivak.
I totally agree. I think Derrick Lewis is probably one of the most limited heavyweights in the top 10 right now, and a great opportunity for Sergey here. I've got Sergey all day.
Good stuff, man. That's a total of 12 fights for us on Saturday. Again, we love early fight nights, which will be happening there for us. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate you catching the bets with us and everything. We'll see you next week.
Peace.